Yeah.
What about the myth about Islam being spread by the sword?
Yeah, also one of the propaganda things I said, just like, the terrorist thing that comes today, like historically, they say that Islam was spread by the sword. And, they have this image, they say Saracens. What happened was, because when you really look at the Crusades, I believe, were really more economic and political wars as opposed to religious wars. Because really, when you study Islam, there's not that much difference really between early Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And Christians and Jews were living in the Middle East at that time, and they didn't have any problems. But economically, when Marco Polo came back, and the princes in Europe realized about the treasures in the Middle East, and in India, and in China, they needed to open up the trade routes to go through. The Middle East is that central zone, so they wanted to control it. So really, I believe it was more economic and political than it was actually a religious war. And so you find that a body of literature comes out of the Crusades, where they describe, they say Mahomet, meaning Muhammad, they say he was a devil worshipper, and they say Saracens, means Sharqiyun, Eastern people, Turks, and whatnot, and they just start to describe Muslims with this curved sword, except Islam, or I'll chop off your head. But the Quran says there's no compulsion in religion. Truth stands clear from falsehood. What you do find, for those of you who have studied history, in the 7th century, at the time when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came, there was the Byzantine Roman Empire, okay, Eastern Orthodox. The capital was Constantinople. And there was the Persian Empire, Sassanid dynasty, okay, in present-day Iran. And so these were the two world powers in the Middle East. And so they attacked the Muslims. The Romans attacked from the north, and the Persians attacked from the east. So the Muslims responded to the attack. When they responded to the attack, the Sassanid dynasty was in a corrupt state, and it fell. And so they opened up all the Persian holdings. The Byzantines were also in a weak state, and so they took the Byzantine holdings in Palestine, and they went right around North Africa. They were all Byzantine Mediterranean holdings. So it was a war going on between the Muslims and the Byzantine Roman Empire. Other places, when you look at the spread of Islam in other places, you find it's mainly merchants, and it's mainly people of knowledge who are spreading Islam. It's not the sword. The largest Muslim country, 170 million, is Indonesia. No army went to Indonesia. Only merchants by the sea, and ulama, scholars went. That's all. There's no armies went there. So again, it's like a stereotype. I will be honest with you, though, is that we have the right to defend ourselves, and some people don't like that. And that's one of the aspects of Islam. The Quran says, if somebody does you harm, then do back to them what they did for you, or you can forgive them, right? Like, it's not totally eye for eye, tooth for a tooth. It's not totally turn the other cheek. You got two alternatives. So the verse says, if somebody does you harm, do to him what he did to you, or you can forgive him. And the end of the verse says, and forgiveness is probably better for you, if you only knew. So, but it gives you the right to establish justice. And so that's why in the slavery period, many times the Muslims were the people leading the revolts. Resistance, man. Because people have a right for self-determination, and they have a right to defend their land. And I think that's a principle that everybody treasures. In America, this is a founding principle of the country, with the British, right? In all of the countries, right? I mean, it wasn't for everybody, but I'm just saying, on paper, right? It's a founding principle, so everybody has that. So we have the right to say that we have the right to self-defense. We have the right, not to be oppressed. And that's a clear, statement that comes out of Islam. And I think this is what makes some people paranoid. But the whole propaganda, about the sword is really something that was made up.